Can we deal with that? Feel free to read where you need to read or to...
Yes, what you can do, Ms. Cholota, when she asks you questions, you don't really have to look at the statement unless you want to refresh your memory. If you've forgotten something, you can respond as you know the information.
Noted, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I see my colleague wants to...
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
My apologies, Chair. Just to note that with regard to the emails that have just been referred to by our evidence leader, that some of the emails, while they may have been found from Ms. Nomalanga's computer, were not from her. So just to note that even though she agrees that she has knowledge of the emails, they are not emails that came from her email address. Some of the...
Yes, but she can explain that.
Okay, just to note that, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, and then you can switch off, yeah.
Thank you. Ma'am, can we deal with the employment background? You don't have to read unless you have to. You can refresh your memory. But can you take us back through your employment background?
Actually, for all intents and purposes, what we want is if you can say when you started working in the office of the Premier.
Okay. I started working in the office of the Premier from the beginning of August in 2013, from the office of the Executive Mayor in Mangaung. That's when I started working there until...
Yes, and until when?
Until 2019 on the 30th of June.
Okay.
And in the meantime, there had been a change of premiers.
Yes, I worked with the former Premier, Magashule, until he left and became the Secretary General of the ANC. I continued to work with the new Premier, Mrs. Ntombela, until the 30th of June this year, 2019.
Okay.
Yes, and the Premier who succeeded Mr. Magashule is Mrs. Ntombela.
The new Premier.
The new Premier.
Yes, it's Mrs. Ntombela.
Yes, and she became Premier and you worked under her or in her office after the elections, or was it after the former Premier had been elected as Secretary General of the ANC?
Correct, Chair.
Yeah, so you worked for about, what, a year and a half
It's
under
a year.
the new Premier?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, and for both premiers, you worked in the capacity of a PA, is that right?
Yes, but the appointment letter would say appointment secretary, but it is referred as the PA.
Okay, but in the appointment letter, it's appointment
secretary.
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 Yes.
Okay, all right. I think you can go immediately to what her duties were in that position.
Do you want to take us through your duties? Primarily in the office of the Premier, we can start from the period when you started in 2013.
Okay.
Yes.
I would deal with all the incomings and the outgoing calls in the office of the Premier,
Yes.
the incoming mails and the outgoing mails, and all the documents that come in the office of the Premier for the attention of the Premier. I would... I had a person two people who reported under me that I had to manage in the office. And the most important one that was happening is the walk-in of the people of the community that are coming in the office of the Premier. I was handling the diary of the Premier and his traveling arrangements.
Okay, when you talk about people that walks in, they walk in because they want to speak to the Premier or what?
Yes, most of the people who would come
Yes.
in the office, they would come as asking or requesting an appointment with the Premier. So it will be different cases, but everyone who comes there would want an appointment with the Premier. That's how I engaged with them.
I see. And on page 263, on paragraph of your statement, from your statement on paragraph 27, I see there you deal with further that you liaise with different departments. What will that entail?
Correct. In the office of the Premier, all the requirements or inquiries that people comes with,
Yes.
they were mostly related to all the departments that we work with. All the 10 departments that we had basically report to the Premier, like all the MECs and all the HODs. So I was liaising with all the departments based on what the community come with that is related to their department.
All right. You also deal with the travel. Are you responsible for the travel arrangements of the Premier, or were you responsible at the time?
Correct, ma'am, but I also had the assistant appointment secretary. In cases where I would be busy with most of the thing, the task of the traveling arrangement would be arranged by the assistant appointment secretary.
And was there any dedicated travel agent that will be utilized?
The travel agent is, we would use the one that is appointed to be used at that time.
Who would have appointed that travel agent?
We would get the direction or the confirmation letter from the Director General and the CFO from the supply chain.
So if we go to the period, the relevant period, at that time, were you at some stage also responsible for the traveling arrangement for the Premier?
For the Premier, yes, ma'am.
Yes. And what travel agent would you have used at the time, or did you use?
We had Astra travel agents before. It was, oh sorry, I forgot the name.
Okay.
And then lately we also used Hambanati Travel Agency.
When you say lately, when did you start using Hambanati?
I think just before the former Premier left and when the new Premier came.
So would it be safe to say that at the time when the new Premier came, then there was a new agent that was utilized?
No, it did not come with the new Premier. I'm just not sure when their contract ends. It depends on the contract that the travel agency gets. So I'm just not sure about the date or when did their contract end. But it did not come with the new Premier.
Okay. So would you know if there was any tender process or selection process for the travel agent that was utilized at the time, 2015, 2016?
No, ma'am, I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know?
I wouldn't know.
When the Office of the Premier require travel arrangement to be made, who will then pay? How will payment and invoicing be handled?
The supply chain will be responsible for it. For the Office of the Chief Financial Officer is the one who's responsible for the payments.
Okay. So what will be the reason for payment being made by any other person except from the department?
I'm sorry, repeat the question again, ma'am.
What will be the reason for payment to the travel agent made outside the payment that would have been made through the department?
It means it will not be for the Premier or for official purposes.
Okay. If we still put your pen there, and I would like to take you to page 18. There's a document there, it's an email.
Okay.
It's item 2.
Okay, ma'am. I'm there.
Yes, you can page over. That's the document. Can you
I'm
identify?
sorry, what page is that?
So, Chair, is page 18.
18.
18, Chair. I see the number that is put on that blue divider. But just immediately after the blue divider, that's where the relevant document is. I don't have.
Well, there's a document that has got no page number here. After
It was supposed to be 19.
tab
Thank you,
2.
Chair. Thank you. It was supposed to be 19. Thank you. Ma'am, can you identify that document for us?
Well, you don't seem to have pages 18 and 19.
I've actually noticed, Chair, that on the folder which is marked 2, there is a number there is 18.
But that should not, that's not how they
Yes.
do it. That 18 should be on
On the actual document.
the page relating to Astra Travel,
Yes, Chair.
but also then there should be one for 19. Looks like there's no page 19.
It was skipped. So I'll suggest for convenience, we can mark the document page 19.
No, let's leave it like that because you don't have it, isn't it?
Okay, Chair.
Are all the dividers given a number? Okay, maybe let's do it
Yes.
as 19, but it's not satisfactory.
I apologize for that, Chair.
Okay.
Ma'am, on page 19 that we have put now, is a document. Can you identify for us?
The request for funding,
Yes, you can start there at the top with the subject. Yes,
yes, request for funding from
Yes,
premier
yes.
at fspremier.gov.za.
is that your email address?
Yes, it's the official email address.
Thank you.
Sent to Ignatius Mbambani, ego@diamondhill.co.za on the 28th of January 2016.
Yes. If you go down there, it says,
Good
Good
day.
day. yes,
Kindly find the below details as discussed telephonically.
okay?
Account name Astra Travel, account number 4701-79252, Absa Bank check account, amount 250,000 rand. Please do send the proof of payment to the above email address. Thanking you in advance. Thank you in advance. Warm regards, Moroadi Cholota, personal assistant to Premier, Office of the Premier.
Thank you. So this is an email that you have sent in your official capacity from your official email to Ignatius Mbambani. Who is Ignatius Mbambani?
He is one of the business people.
He is.
Yes.
And he still is.
I believe he's late, Mayor. He was, sorry.
Yes, yes. Thank you. You send it to him at the time,
Yes, ma'am.
and you send, in that email, you were sending the banking details, and you requested him to send you the proof of payment.
Correct, ma'am.
What was the payment for?
I tried to look at the attachment, ma'am. I was hoping that the list would be covered because I would send different emails to different people. So if I can get either the list or the proof of payment that is stating what is in connection with, because I can see here, I just send it to him saying, as discussed telephonically. So I really don't remember what was it for, ma'am.
You don't remember what it was for?
I don't remember what was it for. Normally, when I send an email, I would attach either the list or an attachment that explains what is it for to the person that we request funding from.
If you go to, I'm just going to leave it for now, leave it there. If you go to the next page,
Okay, ma'am.
and which is page 20, in the middle of that page, there's an email from Ignatius Mbambani.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Rangata,
Chair?
it will go faster if you are referring to an email, if you just tell her the gist of what that email is about and then ask the question.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
So she doesn't have to read.
Thank you, Chair.
I think we should try and finish her evidence as soon as possible. It's not a lot
Thank you.
that is required from her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll move with speed. Ms. Moroadi, we see on that page 20 that there's that email from yourself to Ignatius where you stating,
To
kindly
Mr.
note,
Mbambane,
Mr. Mbambane, you're noting, kindly note that the proof of payment is well received and appreciated.
Correct, ma'am.
Will that serve to remind you as to what the payment was for?
If I receive the attachment and the proof of payment, yes, ma'am, I would remember.
You will have if you receive the attachment for the proof of payment.
The attachment for the proof of payment and the list or whatever page that explains, because normally when I send the email, I would send the attachment or what is the request for, who requested, and where is it going with, together with the banking details, before I can even receive the proof of payment.
Without the proof of payment or for the attachment that what the payment was for, would you be able to comment from your office in your official capacity, why would you have Mr. Mbambane to pay for travel within the office of the Premier?
It will be regarding all the requests that we receive in the office of the Premier. As I've explained previously, if it has got nothing to do with the Premier traveling or officials traveling, if the request comes to the office of the Premier and the government is unable to assist, the Premier would ask for business people to assist, hence it's a request for funding. So it was nothing related to either the students or anything that is covered by government, if my explanation is clear.
so is your evidence that where you asked a business person or somebody to make payment to a travel agent, that payment would not be for the Premier, that payment would be for something else,
Yes, for
but it would be done as a response to a request from the Premier,
correct, Chair.
and you would have been liaising with that business person on behalf of the office of the Premier.
Correct, Chair.
Yes. Okay. Are you able, without the attachment, are you able to remember what kinds of situations you handled where you may have asked, or the office of the Premier may have asked business people to make payments to travel agents?
Yes, sir. In most, if not all cases, it will be regarding students' request.
Yes.
And for an example, you get a letter from a group of artists or a group of people saying that we have received an opportunity to go somewhere. They will attach the invitation, the confirmation and stuff, and say, we have organized the request from number 1 to 5, but we are struggling with the flights or the financial assistance in order for us to arrange accommodation and everything for us to attend the conference or whatever the case may be. Then they would write a request of funding to the Premier. We kindly ask the Office of the Premier to assist us with attached. I would go to firstly, in the absence of the Premier, I would go to the Director General and see if the government would help based on the financial implication or the availability of funds in government. If we can't help as the government, it will be handled by the Director General. But if the Director General says, unfortunately, we won't be able to help, that's where I keep them for the attention of the Premier. He would say, if we don't have money, there's nothing we can do. Or he would say, see if there's any business person who can assist, because this is very important. These people are traveling for a very valid reason that is going to, that is important for our province or whatever the case may be. That is when I have to communicate with business people. I would send it to 2 or 3 different people and see who is available to assist, Chair.
So this would occur when the Office of the Premier or government could not assist,
Correct, Chair.
and then an approach would be made to business people to see if they could assist.
Correct, Chair.
And mostly did this relate to requests by or on behalf of students or also other groups in the community, like music groups and maybe emerging business people? What kind of groups really
Would request
were
such.
helped through this kind of arrangement?
In most cases that I have dealt with, 80% is students. The rest would be groups. It's either artists or a group of athletes going somewhere requesting for funding. Yes, sir.
Do you know why the Office of the Premier wouldn't, in such situations, simply refer the people concerned to business people and let the business people, no, the students or the people asking for help, refer them to the business people, and then the business people liaise with them directly without having to involve the Office of the Premier?
We would do that in most cases, Chair. People would come, before even we refer them to business people direct, would refer them to the relevant departments. Like if you come as a group of music and stuff, we would tell you that go to the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. But in most cases, people would come to the Office of the Premier saying they have exhausted all those, like they have knocked at all those. So every time you refer them back, they will tell you, I tried to meet with the HOD, I tried to meet with the MEC. Some of them would come with regret letter and stuff, or based due to the fact that we don't have budget, unfortunately we won't be able to assist and stuff. So that's why they come to the Office of the Premier as the last resort. But we would do that, Chair, and try as much as we can to refer them to the people that we think they would assist.
Now, you have looked at the emails that were sent to you or that you sent to certain business people that are in the bundle, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, are you able to say all those emails insofar as they involved payment of money by those business people fell under that arrangement, namely mostly assistance for students, but maybe also assistance for other people?
Most of them, Chair.
Most of them would be students, and but there could be other people who are not students who are also seeking help in terms of those that are here.
In terms of those that are here, Chair, if my memory serves me well, is students.
It's students.
Yes, if I remember.
Yeah, you have said in your statement, I think, that the assistance that was being provided by the Office of the Premier related not only to students who are studying at universities and other institutions within the country, but also outside of the country. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
But you also said there was a bursary scheme provided by the government.
Correct.
And then there is financial assistance that was provided by the Office of the Premier. Now, the financial assistance, I'm saying provided by the Premier, maybe that's not what you said in your statement. Were you talking about exactly what you're talking about, namely the Office of the Premier trying to get people who can help and not itself paying, giving that assistance, that financial assistance?
It would be, I'm not sure how to explain it, Chair.
Sometimes the Office of the Premier would pay if they
That's
had
where
money.
Sorry, sir, that's where we start, Chair.
You start, yeah.
If it's financial assistance for students, we would engage with the Department of Education and say, this is the list that we have. The Department of Education would say, for this year, we'll only be able to cover 100 students. They would go through and check all the requirements and give us back the list of the ones that they can assist, then give us the rest that they will not be able to assist. That's where the financial assistance get included. After exhausting all other departments that are relevant, yes, that can assist.
Yes. So if the relevant government department didn't have money to assist or could not assist for whatever reason, and the Office of the Premier could itself not assist, then business people would be approached by the Office of the Premier.
Correct, sir.
were you the official in the Office of the Premier who would make contact with the business people to say, there is somebody who needs this kind of assistance, or there's a student who needs this kind of assistance? I will send you the paperwork. Can you see if you can assist? Or would the Premier have spoken to the business people and you would just make a follow-up?
It would be me and the colleagues that I work with. If after getting the list of the ones that are not being able to be assisted, we would have to engage with the Premier. We can't take decisions without talking to the Director General or the Premier by saying, unfortunately, these students cannot be, should we write regret letters or what should we do? The Premier would advise, or did you try and find or source funds for them before? That after that, we would take that as a directive. That's when I and other colleagues from, mostly I would work with my colleagues from the Unit of Intergovernmental Relations, because most students will go to them and to me, then each time we get a chance, we would just combine our notes and work together. So after that, that is the only time I can communicate with the business people to assist. But it also depends on the availability of the Premier, because after dealing it with one's chair, if something comes and it's urgent, at some point I don't have to wait for the Premier to give me directive. That's why I am there in his office to assist. So I would approach 1 or 2 or 3 business people. If they all say, unfortunately, we won't be able to help, then I know I've tried my best. That's the only time I will write a regret letter. But if I do get help from 1 or 2 of them, then I know how I should go about by saying, all the attachments are here, because if you send a request, I would ask you to attach all the necessary document, even if we have to communicate with the university or wherever you go, so that we confirm before we get included in your request. Then I would send everything that I found from the person who's requesting to the person who agrees to assist, Chair. That's how it will go about.
And as you said, I think you said that that was part of your official duties, doing that
for their
for the students and getting assistance for the students.
Correct,
and
Chair.
so on.
Correct,
Yes.
Chair.
Yes. Okay. You want to
Thank
proceed?
you,
then
Chair.
You may, if necessary, you may direct her to the specific emails, but I wanted to get the general picture.
Yes. I just want to follow from that what Chair has asked. When you decide to contact the business people, who will direct you to those people? How do you identify them?
It's myself, ma'am. Hence, I'm saying I will send it to different business people. If I decide that there's Ndate Igor, there's Mayor Moroadi, there's Mayor Cholota, no one is saying send it to Tandi or Silo or Mang. I would decide. If I send it to 3 different people and they regret, I move to the next 3 names or 4 and so forth. But I will be the one who's dealing with it direct.
I think my question says, how do you identify those people? For an example, let's be particular on this one. When you identify to send the request to Mr. Mbambani, how would you have identified him? Would you have relationship with him before? Would you know him from prior to that?
Not really, ma'am. I would have a list of business people. If you worked in that kind of an environment, that's where you get to know if the kind of requests that you get, you'd have to establish at some point on how you get to deal with them. So as time goes by, I will know that there's a so gentleman who assisted a group of people, blah, blah, blah. I would just note it down in case next time I need help from you. And I'm not sure if you're aware that the establishment of this request for funding for students has been there long before I even arrived. So when I got to the Office of the Premier, I just continued with what I found. Either it's from the database, or sometimes you would even go and check when, let's say there were invites of people for the State of the Province address or anything related to that, then you would try and go out there and find help for them. That's how I get to.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've noticed, I've gone through, I'm sure you've gone through the emails ranging from email 1 up to email 13, 14. I've noticed out of all the emails, 80%, if not 90%, there was one particular person who was very helpful in terms of the request for funding, and that is Mr. Mbambani. Any particular reason for that? Was he the only one that was approached, or was he the only one who was eager to assist?
Mr. Igor Mpambano was not the only business person I approached. According to this file that we received, it's the ones that, I don't know how were chosen to be printed out for this, but from my laptop that the gentleman took from me, they had lists and lists of the business people that I've contacted. Mr. Mpambano is not the only businessman that I have contacted.
I note that.
Well, you are no longer in the office of the Premier now,
Correct.
but it would be good if the Commission could get as much information as possible of who the other business people or companies were who used to be approached, and to see payments that they made. I take it that for all payments that were made at the request of the Office of the Premier, there would have been some written confirmation or receipt that payment has been made as requested or something like that. Is that right?
We do have such, hence I'm saying the gentlemen who met with me in the office,
Yes.
they have those lists, Chair.
Yes. So all that information can be obtained as far as you are concerned.
Chair?
All that information, as far as you are concerned, can be obtained from the Office of the Premier.
They do have all the information. I'm just
information.
not sure if it's still on the system, because I'm not
Yes.
sure who's utilizing the laptop
Yes.
at this present moment. But I'm definitely sure that the gentleman had everything that was on my laptop. Because we
Yes.
discussed most of them, just not all of them are in this file.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
And are you able to give an indication of more or less how many business people would be asked over, say, a year, or did you end up with your regulars, if I can call them that, those that you normally send to, whether they were 10 or 20, but you knew you would send to mostly some of those ones, or there were always new ones on the list?
Not really, Chair. I had different people. As I said, as time goes by, if today you get to information, or you get to know that there is somebody that you can approach regarding that, I cannot say there are specific people that I refer to, because it is not fair that I can ask you something today and tomorrow and the third day. Hence, I'm saying there were a number of businessmen and businesswomen that I could ask for. So, no, Chair, it was not only a group of people that I keep repeating. It also depends on the nature of the request, because at some point we would even approach Pick and Pay and Chakas depending on what the request is for. So it was definitely not a certain group that I'm based with or that I'm dealing with.
Well, at some stage, after you have finished giving evidence, I would like you to, together with your legal team, to talk to the legal team so that they can establish what they should ask for
Okay.
when they approach the Office of the Premier to obtain all of this information that we're talking about.
Okay.
Because you would know to say, well, they must just ask for this and that, because that's where the information will be.
Okay, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Noted.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Just to take from that, Ms. Cholota, if you go to page 41 of the bundle, there's a list of people that are compiled there. Is that part of the people that you would have utilized or identified as business people?
Yes, most of the people that I see here, I have sent them regular, the same requests.
Okay, all right. And who would have compiled this list?
Myself, this was my own draft.
Did you show it to the Premier at the time?
Not really. It was just my draft on my laptop, ma'am.
I see the subject there says guests to be placed at the president and the premier's table. That's
Yes,
the
ma'am.
subject of this email.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you instructed by the premier to compile this list?
No, ma'am. I would have taken this list out of either a guest list of some sort of an event or so. Hence, I'm saying I was like getting names from the database, the previous databases. So this list was not done or compiled by the premier. It's my own list.
My understanding of the email is these are the guests that were supposed to be placed at the table of the president as well as the premier. So I would imagine that these people were going to sit with the premier. Would he have been made privy of the people that he was going to sit with?
If my memory serves me well, when I look at this email, it is the email that I was sending to the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. I can't remember what was the event for. So the list was from me to the Sports, Arts and Culture, not directly from the Premier.
From your official address?
From the official address, yes, ma'am.
Do you know whether some of the business people or their companies who were approached with these requests for assistance by the Office of the Premier would have been people who were doing business with the provincial government?
Chair, I wouldn't know.
You would not know.
I wouldn't know.
It
Chair.
may be so, it might not be so.
I wouldn't know, Chair.
Yeah, okay, all right.
All right. Ma'am? We're dealing with the issue of the scholarship.
Correct, ma'am.
I've gone through your statement, in particular page 265, where you've given the background of the scholarship, how it was started, and you've already, in your evidence, said you found this program already in motion when you joined the Office of the Premier.
Correct, ma'am.
Would you know when you left in June that the program is still proceeding?
Yes, I can confirm that, ma'am.
I'm sorry, what is the problem that's proceeding, or program,
The program,
or the scholarship
yes,
program?
yes, Chair,
Oh,
the
okay.
program, it's
Yes,
still on, it's still
on,
ongoing.
It's still continuing, ma'am.
Even when Mr. Magashule left office,
Correct, ma'am.
it continued.
Correct, ma'am.
Are you aware of any payments or requests that have been made since he left office in March?
I wouldn't know of any payments, but I know of a couple of calls of people inquiring, or if we get a list, who do we talk to, Department of Education, who do we meet with, FSTDI and stuff. But I wouldn't know if there are any proof of payment that took place after that, since I was not the one dealing with them direct after I left the office.
Okay.
I think she was talking about after Mr. Magashule had left, but
Thank you,
Chief.
before
When I
you
was-
left.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
I was still continuing.
Would you be able to assist the commission with that information, that the requests that were made post-March 2018 until the time that you had left in June? That will be the requests that were submitted to the Premier's office, as well as the requests that would have been made, the funding requests that would have been made to business people. And that will be coupled with, obviously, if payments were actually received from the business people or not.
Okay, I can check with them at the department from the IT section, or who's using the laptop. Are we able to access the information?
Thank you very much.
We'll work on that immediately after this.
Thank you.
I don't know what you might have, Ms. Ongata, and you may still ask further questions if you have. But what was important for me is confirmation whether these transactions relating to requests for payment by people outside of government were made in the course of your performance of your official duties on behalf of the Office of the Premier, which you have confirmed. Is that right?
I didn't get that, Chair. Sorry.
Okay. I'm saying what was important for me
Okay.
in relation to these transactions where your name is involved in requests for payment by people outside of government of certain monies at the request of the Office of the Premier, was that was part of your official duties,
Yes,
which you
that's
have
right.
confirmed.
Correct, Chair.
And to explain what the amounts were about, and you say mostly they related to students,
Correct.
some studying inside the country, others studying outside of the country.
Correct, Chair.
And you have said that there are other documents that are not here, which would have been attached to explain what the amount requested was for. And you say those documents would explain. And then you say there are many other business people to whom similar requests were made, and there would be documents which can show that. There should be documents in the Office of the Premier which should show that. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
Yes, yes. I can just say that some of the amounts appear to me to be quite high. You know, I think there is an amount of about close to R500,000. I think 470,000. I think there is 80,000 rand altogether. The two could have been R500,000. I think it was to be sent to the president, SRC president in Cuba.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. You remember that one?
Yes, I remember, Chair.
Yeah. Would you know why it was such a big amount? You have a business person being asked to pay R500,000 rand to a student.
Yes, sir. When I read my email, sir, it says, as discussed telephonically with Ms. Moroadi from the Intergovernmental Relations, I checked the dates and I believe there's a trip that happened to Cuba. I'm just not sure of the dates, Chair. And remembering my conversation with Ms. Moroadi, I believe that they met with Mr. Mpambani in Cuba, and he committed. We had students who were studying medicine in Cuba, and he committed to buy them laptops. That's when Memarake came back and said, this is the commitment we had. Can you kindly communicate with the business person and get the list of the students of those that we agreed to buy laptops for, and see if Mr. Mpambani would help as he committed. That's when I liaised with him and saying, following the discussion you had with Ms. Moroadi, this is the list of the student, and we managed to get a quotation for this amount of 474, 200 pieces of laptops, if my memory serves me well. But then, according to the documents, and if I try to remember correctly, Mr. Mpambani did not buy those laptops for 470. I believe a lesser quotation was obtained, as I have the proof of payment of the 200,000 plus the 100,000. So I believe they bought 200 laptops to an amount of 300,000. So, Chair, answering your question, I would say that amount was sent to him based on his commitment, if that makes sense, Chair.
Okay, so that was your understanding, that
Yes,
he had
that's my understanding.
independently made that
A
commitment.
commitment that he would buy student laptops.
Yes,
Yes, Chair.
yes. There was also an amount about
Of-
some event, Africa Day or something.
That's the 30,000, Chair.
Oh,
Correct.
that's the 30,000 rand.
That's the
Yes.
30,000 rand
Yes.
to the same students. The gentleman was the SRC president. Apparently, they approached the premier and told them that they have an event that is coming up to celebrate Africa. So they would need funds to prepare to buy all the things that they need for the event, and the premier agreed that he will try and assist. That's where the
Yes.
30,000 rand comes from.
Yes, okay, okay. Well, you may proceed, but it seems to me that there may be a need. When are you leaving South Africa, if you are able to say so? If you shouldn't say so publicly, I'll respect that. Maybe I should say, when do you continue to, up to when are you available to assist the Commission with further investigation on this issue, without saying whether that means being out of the country or not?
Chair, I would be available until, I was hoping until the 13th. But it also depends on the things that I need to do before I leave. So my schedule is a bit
Tight.
hectic. Yes, it's a bit tight because I haven't achieved even 60% of the things that I came here for.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Well, I'll tell you what, it would be very helpful to the Commission if you could have a session with the investigators and maybe a member of the legal team, just to get as much information from you as possible to try and obtain documentation from the Premier's office, if possible, before you leave,
Okay.
so that you are able, before you leave, to say, okay, what you have got is what I was talking about. You have got everything that I think explains these transactions and whatever else. Because you have indicated, I think part of the problem is that there have been challenges, as I understand the position, about your availability, and it may be, I'm not sure, it may be that the legal team and the investigation team haven't had a chance to sit down with you, get some of this explanation, and be able to follow up and check documents and so on. So if at all possible, I think that would be very helpful if you could make time, even within your tight schedule. You will try that.
I will do my best, Chair.
Yes.
As I've explained previously, I don't think it's going to be difficult because the investigating team that used to met with me previously
Yes.
have most of the documents, so I don't think it will be difficult, Chair. We'll work on
Okay,
it.
okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
There might be one or two issues that I just want to deal
Yeah.
with. Ms. Cholota, if we can just quickly page 38.
Page 30.
38. I'll tell you.
2-8 or 3-8?
38, Chair.
Okay.
38. There's an email there from Ashney Set Trade to kenny@robsinvestment.co.za. If the email is sending of an invoice as requested between the two, and the email eventually finds its way into your official email address on the second, if you go backwards on page 37 of the same bundle. The bottom email there is from Kenny Mtwentula to Ashney, and you copy it in your capacity premier@fspremier.gov.za. And on the top email there from yourself to Kenny, where you say noted. My question there is very simple. I just want to understand, this seems like a conversation between two individuals or two entities, and eventually they find themselves communicating with the Premier office. What would have been the reason for that?
If I read this clear, ma'am, I am the one who communicated with Rob's Investment, and I got the proof of payment for Rob's Investment. That's where I said noted. But I will not be able to respond for the communication between the two because I communicated with the Rob Investment. If
My question says, on page 38, Ashney is sending the invoice, Mr. Ashney sending an invoice to Mr. Kennedy,
Okay, ma'am.
and on the page 37, Kennedy is responding with a proof of payment to the same person that sent the invoice,
Correct, ma'am.
but you get copied.
Yes, I copy you now.
What would be the reason between two entities that are communicating about their own payments? Why would it end in the Premier's address?
I wouldn't know, ma'am.
You have noted, on the top email, you have noted.
I have noted to Rob Investment. I believe that is where I forwarded my request. if I'm answering your question, ma'am.
Your request being your request for what?
It should be for funding. It should be for funding, Chair.
Yes. You can't, off the top of your head, remember the correspondence when you see it, or you do remember it?
I don't remember the conversation,
Yeah.
but it, as I've seen, for the proof of payment, it should be for the request for funding, Chair.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. On the same line, I'm going to move to page 31.
31.
Yes. There's an email there from Mr. Mbambani sent to John.Clarks and copied Igor Mbambani. On that email, there's a discussion about the payment. There seems to be a little confusion. Sorry, if I can just start on the bottom there. There's an email where it comes on the 3rd of February 2015. I'm just not sure where it comes from, but to Mr. Mbambani. Good day, Mr. Mbambani. Kindly forward your documents in PDF format and observe the following. Invoice 1 for 51 must be dated 2 December 2014. Invoice 2 for 31 rands, it seems like 31 rands, must be dated 12 January 2015. On the same, I'm just going to complete the picture for you. On the same email, the one on top then gives more clarity, says there seems to be a little confusion. Invoice 1 was for 51 million, but it was paid in two parts, 20 million in December and 31 million in January. Therefore, I can't make an invoice for 51 million, in brackets 40%, and then another for 31 million, and in brackets part of the same 40%, unless that's what is required for administration purposes. This was found from your computer or your laptop. Would you mind to comment how it landed in your computer?
I have no knowledge of this email, ma'am. It was not directed to me. I have no knowledge of this.
Have you seen it before?
No, ma'am. I saw it on this attachment of the affidavit for Mr. Dugwana. It was the first time I see this.
So when you read it, what was your understanding of this? Did you ask yourself why?
I did not even go through it and try to think about it because it's not related to me and the emails that I've sent.
So it was just in your computer, you were not aware of it, you don't know what is it for, you didn't ask anyone, you didn't ask Mr. Bambani, what's going on, why am I seeing this in my emails?
No knowledge of it, ma'am. It was not in part of the emails that I was sending to Mr. Bambani.
So you saw it for the first time in this bundle?
In this bundle, and if I remember correctly, when I met with the investigator, but they did not give it to me. Now that she's mentioning the name, they asked me if I know so, and I said no.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think there probably is a need for further investigation on some of these issues so that they can be looked into properly.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. Chair, I've got the last question for this witness.
Yes, okay. I think, Ms. Cholota, there will be a need for the discussion that I talked about,
Yes, sir.
because some of the emails and some of the things still need further investigation and discussion and interrogation. Ms. Rangata, you must just make sure it happens.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Cholota's legal representatives are
Yes.
here. I'm sure they will try and assist, but we need
Yes.
to make sure that there is no uncertainty about some of the things here.
Thank you, Chair.
But unless there is anything from your legal representatives, and I
I've
think
got
there is
one
nothing.
I've got one last question.
Oh,
Yes, Chair, sorry about that. Ms. Cholota, I want to ask you, the bursary scheme that was set up, I read from your affidavit or statement that it was designed for the needy, those people who cannot afford. Am I right?
You're correct, ma'am.
There is an email that deals with the request for payment or for funding by Ms. Refilo Mokoena. I'm
Oh,
sure
yes,
you're
I
aware
saw
of
it.
it's item 1 of the bundle.
I'm aware of it, ma'am.
And I would imagine that the scheme is designed to help those who will be able to show neediness.
If you
What-
explain it that way, I'll explain mine when I reply. ma'am.
How do you identify people that needs to be funded or needs assistance?
For me, if it comes to a push for you to go out and seek help, for me, I would say you are in need of it, if it makes sense.
So I can apply today and I will get funding for my children.
If you are managed to assist you, we'll be able to assist you. It depends on your request, ma'am.
So the scheme is not based on indigency, it's based on anybody who says, can you assist me?
I was attending to all the requests that I received on my official emails.
It doesn't matter if your parents can pay or if you've got the ability to pay for yourself. So it is not indigent based, it is on request base.
When it comes to the ones that we were forwarding to the Department of Education, they do that background check. But the other requests that comes to me, I would believe that if I receive something and the person is explaining and put at all the relevant attachment, to me, that person is in need of that, whatever that they requested on that document.
As part of that request, can we also add this one so we can be finished with the supporting documents that were made when this particular request was made?
I saw everything on your file, ma'am. Everything is attached from their request up until, I'm not sure if you did put.
I'm
the
talking
proof of
about
payment.
Ms. Refila Mokoena in particular, when she applied for the funding for her child.
Okay, yes.
Can we be finished with the supporting documents that showed that she was in need of assistance?
Okay, ma'am, I'll give you what I have on the laptop then.
Thank you. Chair, that's all that
That's all.
I'd ask.
So are you saying that your understanding of the people who were supposed to be assisted by the Office of the Premier
Yes, sir.
when government departments could not assist them did not have to be poor people, did not have to be people who could not afford the assistance themselves, as long as they made a request and you could look for some business person who could assist them.
If I put it correct, Chair, I would say the people who are poor and needy and could not afford was our priority. But in some instances, would say, at some point, people are asking for different, even if, I'm just making an example, even if my father is a chief director, raising 7 kids, 4 of us are at the university, they are going through a divorce and stuff like that, we would consider such things happening in other people's lives. But poor people, needy people were our priority.
Okay, but I guess that in order to make sure that you put a request to business people
Yes.
that are really deserving, there ought to be some kind of screening,
Oh, yes, correct.
because otherwise you don't want somebody who just wants to have a lot of pocket money
Correct, sir.
when they are in Cuba or wherever to approach and say, I'm in need of money, when actually they just want to have extra money.
Oh, you're correct.
You appreciate that.
I hear what you say,
Yeah.
Chair, yes.
But are you able to say whether you had in place mechanisms to make sure that there was no abuse of that kind of,
Yes,
of
sir.
the assistance?
Yes, the investigation team can go through it. I truly believe that 90, if not 98% of the people that we assisted are people who are needy,
Yes.
who are in need of that.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm sure also whatever documentation might be available, you will do your best to try and make sure we've got it.
Correct, sir.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you. Unless your counsel has anything, I'm ready to release her.
Chair, I just have 2 quick points that I just
Okay.
wish to raise, please.
Okay, use the other mic.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
The first is just to highlight, I think, what Ms. Cholota had said about the fact that there was an international governmental relations office that dealt with the international students, and that her main priority was the fact that she dealt with the local students. And so I say that to get to the second point, which is it might be somewhat difficult to get to the information that related to a separate component where she is concerned. The other worry is the fact that Ms. Cholota is no longer an employee of the Office of the Premier anymore. And my understanding was that upon receipt of the summons in June, investigators approached her and were able to mirror all her laptops and all her cell phone communication. And so while she might be able to speak to the contents of that information, I'm not quite sure that she would be able to approach the Office of the Premier on any sort of official basis and obtain this information. But she's very much willing to assist the investigators in the interpretation of the information that they already have, and in seeking to get individuals that may be able to provide that information. So just to that extent that she might not legally be able to approach a government office that she's no longer an employee of,
Yes.
she's willing to do
No,
her best.
I appreciate that she's no longer there, and therefore she can't, she would have limitations. But I think what I have in mind is that she would arm the investigators and the legal team with all the information that they might need to get any further documents or information that may be necessary. But also before or during the days that she might be able to make time, she can give whatever information or clarify whatever may need to be clarified to them, just to make sure that we have got
Indeed.
everything that we need.
No, that is in order, Chair.
And we appreciate that she says she will do her best.
Yes.
We don't expect her to do what she can't do.
Indeed, Chair. And
Yeah.
I think the correct procedure, if I understand correctly, where witnesses are summoned by the Commission is that the evidence leader team interviews the witness, and that they
Yes.
have not had the opportunity to do that
Yes, yes.
to the extent that they would have liked to. So my understanding is that Ms. Cholota is very much willing to cooperate with the Commission and the
Yes.
evidence leaders, and to the extent that she hasn't been able to
Yes.
sit with them, I think we do apologize for that, and we do take
Yes.
responsibility on her behalf for that.
Okay. no,
Thank you,
that's
Chair.
fine.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Ms. Cholota, thank you very much for responding to the summons. You will, as arranged, then cooperate and meet with the legal team and the investigators so that you see what more, how else you can be of assistance to them, and they can indicate what more they would like to get from you. And in the weeks and the months to come, wherever you are, if the Commission wishes to have more information, I'm sure you will cooperate. Is that right?
Yes, Chair, I will
Within the
cooperate.
constraints that you might have.
Anything in my ability to assist, I will do so, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. You are excused.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we are going to adjourn. This is the last witness we are hearing this year. The hearings will resume next year from the 13th of January. There might just be a hearing of some application or other in between if a need arises. But in terms of witnesses giving evidence, this is the last witness for this year. We will then,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
we adjourn.
All rise.